Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you 10 of the most popular series which I want to read. Now the 10 series that I'm talking about in this video are not the only series which I want to read. I also want to read many more other than these, but these are kind of the top 10 on my priority list, and few of them I've started and own books of, and most of them I don't have even the books as physical copies with me, but I definitely will be reading them sometime in the near future. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. The first two series in this video are going to be the ones for which I own all the books with me. So of these, the first one is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I very recently purchased this box set and you can see it in one of my book hauls. I'll try to link it down in the description or up in the high card. Now the thing about The Lord of the Rings is that I started reading it in the January of 2020 and I read The Fellowship of the Ring alone. But if you ask me now, I don't remember anything of what I read. But this year I've started it again and I'm going to read it from The Hobbit. I've actually finished The Hobbit and the review for it is already out in the channel. You can go and check it out if you're interested. But I'm definitely going to finish the series this year. I'm planning to read one book per month in the trilogy and finish these as a whole and then carry on with the other books in the series like the Silmarillion, the Unfinished Tales and many other such things. I definitely want to get lost in the Middle-earth tales, and after reading The Hobbit itself, I am so much interested in getting to know a lot more about the lore and the history of this world a lot. I've also heard that the friendships in The Lord of the Rings are the best compared to anything else. So all those things just intrigue me a lot to read this one, and I just saw the impact of the friendship that is formed between Bilbo and the dwarves in just a single book itself. So I'm very much expecting to see how it is going to develop over a span of 3 books and many years when it comes to The Lord of the Rings. This is definitely something which I'm going to read pretty soon. The next one is a young adult fantasy series and it is The Ember Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. Now it has just 4 books, and of these 4 I've started reading the first book, which is The Ember in the Ashes alone, and as of now I'm like nearly 25% into the book, and I'm sure that by the end of August I would have finished at least this one, and I think I will be making a far greater progress in this one compared to The Lord of the Rings because it is young adult, and as far as I've read from the first book I can easily say that the writing in this one is definitely kind of my thing because it is dark and fast paced, and that is the kind of books which I tend to read a lot faster compared to books which have a lot more depth to their writing. I also like the way in which the author is actually building the world from the first book itself. I've just read like 100 pages or so from the first book, but as of now itself there's a lot of information that is given to me. Most of them are infodumps which I don't like, but apart from that there are also some information which we get just from the voices of the characters itself. So I think I will be reading this faster, and my goal is to finish it this year itself. Let's just wait and see. The next one is probably a universe compared to a series in specific because it has multiple series within that single universe and it is super famous everywhere in the book community, and I've read 2 of the books from this entire series which are standalones, and I want to read all the others also, and I'm talking about the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. Now I have finished reading Elantris and Warbreaker. I just enjoyed both of them very much. I've heard that Elantris is one of his weaker works, but that itself was super staggering for me to read, and it was very easy also for an adult fantasy book which is heavily politically driven. That was super easy for me to read because I am not a person who's that much intrigued by politics when it comes to any type of fantasy story, but in that one I just loved it the whole time. And in Warbreaker also it was super well done. I've heard that Mistborn and Stormlight Archive are his best works so far, so I definitely want to read them. I have the first book in the first era of the Mistborn series alone, which is The Final Empire. I don't have the other 2 books and the second era. My plan is to start reading the Cosmere and get caught up with it by the end of 2022. I'm not sure. I might even be starting it this year. My plan is to read the first era first, then the second era, and reread Elantris and Warbreaker once more, and then get into the massive Stormlight Archive. I definitely want to read the Stormlight Archive because it is one of my milestones to read when it comes to fantasy series, and I'm sure that I will be reading it, but I'm not sure if it will be anytime soon. The next one is another completed series, and it is also an adult grimdark series, and I'm talking about The Witcher by Andrej Sapkowski. Now the only knowledge that I have about The Witcher series is from the first season of The Witcher show on Netflix, which I watched when it released, and ever since I watched the first season of the show, I've been wanting to read this series, but due to multiple reasons, I've not started it yet. My idea was to finish the series before the second season releases, but the trailer just came out and it is coming out in December 2021. I'm sure that I'm not going to finish the series by that time. I'm not even sure if I'd have started reading it by the time the second season comes out, but I'm sure that I will be reading this sometime in the next 1 year's time span because all these books are not even that big. They are just normal sized books. And I've heard that there are 3 short story collections and 5 books in the original series. We have to read 2 of the short story collections first and then the main series, and another short story collection at last because it was published later on. Kind of like in the Shadowhunter Chronicles where short story collections just get in between series and just try to play with our brains when it comes to the reading order. I usually like reading messed up reading orders like that one, and that's one of the main reasons why I want to read this. And ever since I watched the show, I just liked the way in which the characters were portrayed. I'm sure that if they were that good in the show, they must be far better in the books. So very much interested in reading this, and I think I will be reading this sooner compared to the Cosmere. Next we have yet another massive fantasy series. I think this is the most famous modern fantasy series as of now, and it is definitely The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson again. Now my idea again to read The Wheel of Time was to finish the series, or at least get caught up with 2 or 3 books in the series before the show comes out. But unfortunately, the Wheel of Time show is coming out a month even before Witcher, that is in November itself. I'm sure that I will be watching it. So obviously I would not have read the books before I watched the show, which is kind of an illegal thing to do as a bookworm according to me. But I'm going to read it, however, because I'm very much interested to see how the story is, because I've heard that the scope of the Wheel of Time is super huge and it's extremely descriptive. So generally, so far as I've read, the most descriptive a book is, the better it looks on screen. And I also think that since Amazon is doing it, it'll be far grander, and I think they will provide good justice as well. I want to read this at some point in my life, but I'm not sure if I'm up to the commitment to read a 15 book long series right now. But I will read this at some point in my time, and let's just hope that it happens soon. Next we have yet another Brandon Sanderson series, and it is young adult and sci-fi, not fantasy, and I'm talking about the Skyward series. As of now, 2 books are published, and the 3rd book is to come out this year, which is Cytonic. The first book was Skyward, the second one was Starsight, and the third one which is to come out is Cytonic. It is a quartet, so 1 more book is to be published later on sometime. I am interested in reading this one because I've heard that though it is huge, it is super fast paced compared to other Sanderson books, because Sanderson books that I've read so far are slow paced, but towards the end everything just pays off marvelously. I trust him with the climaxes from the 2 books that I've read so far itself. So I am very much interested in reading these, and also the mental health aspect when it comes to Skyward series, especially focused on young adults, is something which I've heard from many people in a very positive way. So that is one thing which intrigues me a lot to read this series. Again, since it's Brandon Sanderson, the books are just ginormous, so I'm not sure when I'll be reading this, but I think I will be reading it once all the 4 books are out, and I definitely want to read this at some point. So let's just wait and see. The next one is another adult grimdark series, if I'm not wrong, and it is The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I think the series as a whole consists of 15 books, but not all of them belong to the same series. I think it is a collection of 5 trilogies, but each and every trilogy is like a conclusion of the previous one. It starts with the Farseer trilogy and develops on towards the future. I think some of them are the Live Ship Traders trilogy, the Tawny Man trilogy, the Fools trilogy, I think, I'm not sure. But as far as I've heard, this is kind of a family saga where all characters, or at least the main characters from the first series, which is the Farseer trilogy, occur in the successor series as well. I usually like reading family sagas as a whole because that is something which I relate to a lot more. And I've heard that this is also a very tough series to get through when it comes to the amount of violent graphic content. Personally, I don't feel that much uncomfortable while reading violently horrific stuff because it doesn't bother me to such a great extent. I know that it's just a book and it's just a story and it's not really happening anywhere. So I think that this will be something which I enjoy a lot. The next one is another adult grimdark series, and it is the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Now I've actually started reading this series in audiobook. I started reading the first book, which is the Blade itself, in the First Law trilogy on audio, but what happened is after a particular point I was not able to pay attention to what was happening at all because a major portion of the things which I read did not have a plot at all. It was just like I was seeing people doing things. That was all there. And after I looked up for the reviews, everyone was saying that the First Law trilogy as a whole itself does not have that much of a plot. It is completely about these characters whom Joe Abercrombie has actually written about, and each and every character is super morally grey, and the series as a whole itself is super grimdark. Again, since I'm a character-driven reader, this was just enough for selling the series to me, and I want to read this. I definitely want to read it physically because I've tried it on audio and it did not work for me. It will take some time for me to sit down and read these books, and I've also tried to buy these online as paperbacks, but they are just extremely expensive, at least here in India. I don't know why they are so expensive because they are very famous, and I'm sure that if they sell it for like a reasonable price, many more people will buy them as physical copies and read, because I did not feel the audiobook that much gelling with me. I think it might be the issue for people like me also. So I definitely want to read this, but as a physical copy. The next one is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I have the last book alone, which is the Stone Sky. The first one is the 5th season and the second one is the Obelisk Gate. I've heard only really positive things about this book, okay? Basically, it's just a dystopian world in which magic exists and many things happen. It is kind of an oppressed society kind of fantasy. And I've heard that in this entire series itself, the earth just breaks multiple times and gets reformed again because of many natural calamities. And it is also dystopian in that way. Usually, I'm not a fan of reading dystopian books, but if they go like super dark and they are very practical and explode really well, I like them very much. one thing which intrigued me a lot in order to pick up this series is that I've heard many people say that the first book, the 5th season, is written from second person's point of view. I have personally not at all read any book that is written in second person's point of view, that is saying that you are doing this thing, this is happening to you, something like that. And there are also multiple other standalone trilogies that Jemisin has written, and each and every book in the series is the Hugo Award winner, so I'm sure that it is going to be good. After I wrap up some of the series that are already resting on my shelf, I'll definitely buy this entire trilogy and read them continuously. So this is also something which I'll be reading pretty soon. And at last we have one of the most important as well as famous authors of our time, and it is the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I've personally read only one Stephen King book so far, but I own like 7 to 8 of books on my shelf which I have not at all gotten to yet. The only one thing which bothers me a lot when I want to pick up a Stephen King book is that it has a lot of description, okay, and most of the description just exists to build the world, and the world that he builds is not a place which I'd like to be, but the stories that he writes are things which I am interested a lot in reading about. He's an excellent storyteller, and from reading it alone, I've read only it, and it was like huge, okay, it is ginormous, and that's one of the main reasons I'm a lot more frightened to get into his books. It's not the content, but the heaviness of the description that I'm very much worried about while I get into his books. I'm sure that I will be reading the Dark Tower series at some point in my life, and I've also heard that if you have not read many of his other works and read the Dark Towers alone, it feels a lot better. So probably I will be reading this first and then moving on to his other works. But at some point in my life, I definitely want to read the Dark Tower series. So yes guys, those are the 10 popular series which I definitely want to read pretty soon or at some point in my life. If you have a list like that one, please do let me know them in the comments below, because I'd like to know what series you guys are interested in so that I can read them along with you as well. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel because I publish new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.